Friends in Small Places by Ruskin Bond, read by Paul Thottam. Master G. I was strolling along the platform, waiting for the arrival of the Amritsar Express, when I saw Mr. Kushal handcuffed to a policeman. I hadn't recognized him at first. A paunchy gentleman with a lot of grey in the beard and a certain arrogant amusement in his manner. It was only when I came closer, and we were almost face to face, that I recognized my old Hindi teacher. Startled, I stopped and stared, and he stared back at me. A glimmer of recognition in his eyes. It was over 20 years since I'd last seen him, standing jauntily before the classroom blackboard, and now here he was tethered to a policeman and looking as jaunty as ever. Good evening, sir," I stammered in my best public school manner. You must always respect your teacher, no matter what the circumstances. Mr. Kushal's face lit up with pleasure. "So, you remember me. It's nice to see you again, my boy." Forgetting that his right hand was shackled to the policeman's left, I made as if to shake hands. Mr. Kushal thoughtfully took my right hand in his left and gave it a rough squeeze. A faint odour of cloves and cinnamon reached me, and I remembered how he had always been redolent of spices when standing beside my desk, watching me agonize over my Hindi-English translation. He had joined the school in 1948, not long after the partition. Until then, there had been no Hindi teacher. We'd been taught Urdu and French. Then came a ruling that Hindi was to be a compulsory subject. And at the age of 16, I found myself struggling with a new script. When Mr. Kushal joined the staff, on the recommendation of a local official, there was no one else in the school who knew Hindi, or who could assess Mr. Kushal's abilities as a teacher. And now, once again, he stood before me, only this time he was in the custody of the law. I was still recovering from the shock when the train drew in, and everyone on the platform began making a rush for the compartment doors. As the policeman elbowed his way through the crowd, I kept close behind him and his charge. And as a result, I managed to get into the same third-class compartment. I found a seat right opposite Mr. Kushal. He did not seem to be the least bit embarrassed by the handcuffs or by the stares of his fellow passengers. Rather, it was the policeman who looked unhappy and ill at ease. As the train got under way, I offered Mr. Kushal one of the parathas made for me by my Firozpur landlady. He accepted it with alacrity. I offered one to the constable as well, but although he looked at it with undisguised longing, he felt duty-bound to decline. "Why have they arrested you, sir?" I asked. "Is it very serious?" "A trivial matter," said Mr. Kushal. "Nothing to worry about. I shall be at liberty soon." "But what did you do?" Mr. Kushal leant forward. "Nothing to be ashamed of," he said in a confiding tone. "Even a great teacher like Socrates fell foul of the law." "You mean one of your pupils made a complaint?" "And why should one of my pupils make a complaint?" Mr. Kushal looked offended. "They were the beneficiaries. It was for them." He noticed that I looked mystified, and decided, "Come straight to the point. It was simply a question of false certificate." "Oh," I said, feeling deflated. Public school boys are always prone to jump to the wrong conclusions. "Your certificates, sir?" "Of course not. Nothing wrong with my certificates. I had them printed in Lahore in 1946. "With age comes respectability," I remarked. "In that case, whose?" "Why, the matriculation certificates I've been providing all these years to the poor idiots who would never have got through on their own." "You mean you give them your own certificates?" "That's right. And if it hadn't been for so many printing mistakes, no one would have been any wiser. You can't find a good press these days. That's the trouble. It was a public service, my boy. I hope you appreciate that. It isn't fair to hold a boy back in life simply because he can't get through some puny exam. Mind you, I don't give my certificates to anyone. They come to me only after they have failed 2 or 3 times. And I suppose you charge something. Only if they can pay. There's no fixed sum. Whatever they like to give me. I've never been greedy in these matters, and you know I'm not unkind. Which is true enough, I thought, looking out of the carriage window at the green fields of Moga and remembering the half-yearly Hindi exam, when I had stared blankly at the question paper, knowing that I was totally incapable of answering any of it. Mr. Kushal had come walking down the line of desks, stopping at mine and breathing cloves all over me. "Come on, boy. Why haven't you started?" "Can't do it, sir," I said. "It's too difficult." "Never mind," he had urged in a whisper. "Do something. Copy it out. Copy it out." And so, to pass the time, I had copied out the entire paper, word for word. And a fortnight later, when the results were out, I found I had passed. "But, sir," I had stammered, approaching Mr. Kushal when I found him alone. "I never answered the paper. I couldn't translate the passage. All I did was copy it out." "That's why I give you pass marks," he had answered imperturbably. "You've such neat handwriting. If ever you do learn Hindi, my boy, you'll write a beautiful script." And remembering that moment, I was now filled with compassion for my old teacher, and leaning across, I placed my hand on his knee and said, "Sir, if they convict you, I hope it won't be for long. And when you come out, if you happen to be in Delhi or Firozpur, please look me up. You see, I'm still rather hopeless at Hindi, and perhaps you could give me tuition. I'd be glad to pay." Mr. Kushal threw back his head and laughed, and the entire compartment shook with his laughter. "Teach you Hindi?" he cried. "My dear boy, what gave you the idea that I ever knew any Hindi?" "But, sir, if not Hindi, what were you teaching us all the time at school?" "Punjabi," he shouted, and everyone jumped in their seats. "Pure Punjabi. But how were you to know the difference?" Keemat Lal. I met Inspector Keemat Lal about 2 years ago while I was living in the hot, dusty town of Shahpur in the plains of northern India. Keemat Lal had charge of the local police station. He was a heavily built man, slow and rather ponderous, and inclined to be lazy, but like most lazy people, he was intelligent. He was also a failure. He had remained an inspector for a number of years and had given up all hope of further promotion. His luck was against him, he said. He should never have been a policeman. He had been born under the sign of Capricorn and should really have gone into the restaurant business, but now it was too late to do anything about it. The inspector and I had little in common. He was nearing 40 and I was 25. But both of us spoke English, and in Shahpur there were very few people who did. In addition, we were both fond of beer. There were no places of entertainment in Shahpur. The searing heat, the dust that came whirling up from the east, the mosquitoes, almost as numerous as the flies, and the general monotony gave one a thirst for something more substantial than stale lemonade. My house was on the outskirts of the town, where we were not often disturbed. On 2 or 3 evenings in the week, just as the sun was going down and making it possible for one to emerge from the cuss-cooled confines of a dark, high-ceilinged bedroom, Inspector Keemat Lal would appear on the veranda steps, mopping the sweat from his face with a small towel, which he used instead of a handkerchief. My only servant, excited at the prospect of serving an inspector of police, would hurry out with glasses, a bucket of ice and several bottles of the best Indian beer. One evening, after we had overtaken our 4th bottle, I said, "You must have had some interesting cases in your career, Inspector." "Most of them were rather dull," he said. "At least the successful ones were. The sensational cases usually went unsolved. Otherwise, I might have been a superintendent by now." "I suppose you are talking of murder cases. Do you remember the shooting of the Minister of the Interior? I was on that one, but it was a political murder and we never solved it.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?